speaking of top 10, we're about to talk about top 5 defensive linemen in the NFL draft. And just before everybody gets real particular out there, we're not getting specific as to linebacker slash edge. Yes, you're going to have Will Anderson in here. Yes, you're going to have Jalen Carter in here. This is going to be defensive ends, defensive interior, defensive lineman, whatever you want to call it. Any guy that's on the defensive line, or if they're majorly playing an edge, like Will Anderson's in here. I know he can be a linebacker just like Nolan Smith, but they're classified as edge rushers. Just wanted to put that disclaimer out there. So, Justin, if you want, we'll kind of go back and forth here. I think it'll make it a little easier. Go ahead.
Well, you just made it easier. You just called the 3 top defensive linemen in this draft in my position. Like, let's start with Will Anderson. I always have a thing, like, we're talking about tradition.
Yeah.
When you play at particular schools, there are particular schools that are known for producing particular positions, and Alabama is one of them, producing players along the defensive lane, along the offensive lane, and especially at wide receiver and running back. When you're talking about defensive lane, that you're going to start with Alabama. So for me, you're starting with Will Anderson. Like, I think if you're not sure about the pick you're going to have and he is available, he is your surefire pick. You just take that and be comfortable knowing you probably have a Pro Bowl defensive lineman right off the bat as an edge rusher. And playing in the SEC, as you know, that's as high level football as you can get without playing in the NFL. And he is extremely dominant at Alabama. You cannot go wrong. As the first defensive lineman off the board, Will Anderson.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as well. Consensus number 1 defensive lineman in this class. Great edge rusher. 36 total sacks in 3 years at Alabama, so an average of 12 a year for college. Definitely nothing to scoff at there. And this guy really terrorized the SEC for about 3 solid years. Great speed on the edge. He's got great hands, and he'll really jam the lineman up. He's just a freak athlete. You know, you kind of look at Myles Murphy as well. He's going to be a little later in this list. I like Myles Murphy. Also, next to Will Anderson, kind of similar play styles. Of course, Will being the much better player, but the speed, again, like I mentioned, the arm length, the hands. He is going to be, speaking of Will Anderson, in the 72nd percentile, though, for missed tackles at about a 16% rate. So he does need to clean that up coming into the league, but he is very slippery. His spin move might be his best move overall, and he can just get really quick to the point with a quarterback. Very elite as a run defender. He can accelerate quickly. You're not going to find too many holes in Will Anderson's game. Now let's go to number 2. Who's your second defensive lineman off the board?
I told you this before, and you gave me a side eye, but I'm going to bring it up again. He may be talking about arguably the best player in the draft in Jalen Carter. Like, you saw what he did. You were right there in Georgia. You saw exactly what he did for your back-to-back defending champs. Like, there is a reason why Georgia was so great defensively, and I know that you produced so many great first-round picks along that defense, but I don't think any have been better than Jalen Carter. And you can't ignore the off-field questions, like, the car crash, turning up to
you hate to see it.
Yeah, you hate to see it. You turn up to pro day out of shape. You turn up to the scouting combine out of shape. So that speaks to a character issue. But I can tell you this write this down right now, Adam. Unless all 4 quarterbacks that we're going to talk about shortly go in the first round and high in the first round, Jalen Carter does not get past Seattle at number 5. Like, does not. I truly believe that Pete Carroll is willing, and we know Pete Carroll, we know John Schneider, are guys who have been willing in the past to look past character issues. I think that he will be the second defensive lineman off this board.
Yeah, I mean, you're rightfully so, like you said, and you take a look at some numbers that just really jump out to you. His pass rushing ability, I think, really separated him from the rest of the class, especially at his position. So among the 168 interior defenders who rushed the passer at least 300 times over the last 3 seasons, Jalen Carter was 3rd in pass rush grade at 90, 2nd in win rate at 16, and 9th in total pressures with 60. This guy's a monster at 6'3", 300 pounds. And when you look at Jalen Carter on tape, it feels like you got about 2 seconds to decide what you're going to do with him after the snap before he's just blowing through and getting to the quarterback. He's going to essentially dispose of the offensive lineman that's in front of him. He shucks off a ton of moves with linemen. It's just got a motor that seems to never really stop. It's kind of like a slower Will Anderson in a way, but he's going to give you a ton of size. Again, 6'3", 300 pounds. His arm length is a major weapon too. Big time tackler, but he can overrun some quarterbacks at times in the pocket, just really as he's bull rushing through the line. Might get a little too much steam, but you're not going to have a complaint about Jalen Carter, like you said. And I got to respect the confidence of him too, him really saying, hey, I know, and I'm pretty sure his agent is Drew Rosenhaus. Shout out Drew Rosenhaus. If I was an athlete, I'd probably want him as my agent. He was like, hey, My agent told me I know I'm going top 10, so I'm not even meeting with anybody outside the top 10. So you got to have a lot of respect for that confidence again with the off-field antics. We've seen everything. We don't want to go back over that. And just knowing that Jalen Carter at one point was considered the number one overall pick in this NFL draft, but clearly trades have happened. And he's still number two at the position, no question about it. Now, number three defensive lineman off the board for you.
This is where it gets tricky. So you mentioned one of them. Yeah, you mentioned Miles Murphy. And
Yeah,
again, I love schools like Clemson for producing these type of players. Let's
right.
look no further like Dexter Lawrence. But I don't know if I would take Miles Murphy or again another Georgia Bulldog and your guy Nolan Smith. Like you mentioned, like I'm just high on pass rushers, and
Yeah,
when you come out of a defensive minded school like Georgia, like I love teams that play in high leverage moments, in high leverage games, where I can see what you're built of. You're playing in the SEC, easily the best division in all of college football.
yeah.
You've played on significant minutes in a significant role on a back-to-back national title winning team. I am going to, if I'm going to have to take a risk or bet here, I'm going to go Nolan Smith probably, and then Miles Murphy. One of the two, like
Ooh, back to back Georgia boys.
I'm going to go to Georgia boys. I'm going to go Nolan Smith because again, like the mere fact that you have played in championship games, you've made an impact in championship games, that has to say something. And this is no disrespect to Miles Murphy. I think Miles Murphy is easily a top five defensive lineman, but I'm going to give the edge to Nolan Smith here.
Heard that. Nolan Smith as your third defensive lineman off the board. I'm going to counter you and go Miles Murphy. Nolan Smith is going to be right behind him for me. But Miles Murphy at number three, 6'4, 275 pounds, had an 84 run defense grade last season, which ranked second in the second in the ACC. Damn, Adam, slow down a little bit. I know it's Friday. ACC among edge defenders. Now, I do think he needs to work on some of his pass rushing moves. He is a little bit of a project. You can see he's also a little similar to Trayvon Walker from last season when you look at just some things that they needed to clean up with the pass rushing move, getting their form, getting their play style just a little tighter, a little more cleaned up for the NFL to deal with those massive offensive linemen, those veterans that they're going to be going up against. But his speed and his strength off the edge is really some of the best in the class. Again, I compared him to Will Anderson. I know Will Anderson's going to go before him, but if Miles Murphy went just shortly after Will Anderson, I wouldn't be surprised. Miles Murphy has that type of talent coming out of Clemson. He clearly played at a great program, played at a great school under a great coach. This guy flies off the edge. He's either going to bull rush you or he's going to blow past you. There's really no in between with Miles Murphy, and he's going to use his longer arms to wrap up defensive players as well. Wrap up offensive players. And I was really impressed with Miles Murphy when I turned on the tape because this is the type of edge defender that you look for. This is the type of athlete. This is the type of defensive lineman, especially in 2023 with the way that these offenses are. Players are just getting favored more and more on the offensive side of the ball. You got to keep up with them. You got to be an athlete. You have to be able to move edge to edge. You have to be able to run a 4.39 40 at a linebacker edge position like a Nolan Smith, which I think that's going to be your number four, maybe, but let's go ahead and get into it. Number 4 D lineman off the board for you.
Yeah, the guy you just mentioned, Miles Murphy. Um, I think the only concern I have, I think you just mentioned it, is like cleaning up some of your pass rushing moves.
Right.
But he's pretty raw, extremely powerful, extremely explosive.
Yep.
But it's again coming to refining those pass rushing moves because, as you know, you're no longer just facing collegiate players. Like you are facing NFL offensive linemen,
Yep.
big solid men that you're going to have to rely on more than just that pass, like that bull rush that he has.
Yep.
But like raw instincts, raw talent. I have to go Miles Murphy. And again, I like going to particular schools for particular players. We
Yep.
saw what Clemson produced in a player like Dexter Lawrence. So then if you're telling me taking Miles Murphy here, yeah, number 4 for me, Miles Murphy.
Miles Murphy, number 4. I'm going to obviously go with your number 3 as my number 4, Nolan Smith, who is the number 1 overall recruit in the 2019 class coming into college. And after he actually graded below 70 in each of his first 2 college seasons, according to PFF, he earned overall grades of 85 in 2021, bounced back with an 83.7. So essentially an 84 right around his score from 2021 over into 2022 to finish his career 6'3", 235 pounds, though, did run that insane 4.39 40 time that really got everybody buzzing around Nolan Smith. And when you see that out of a defensive player, like that's literally what Christian Gonzalez is running in this year's draft. I want to say is a 4.36, and he's one of the best athletes, one of the best players the best corner in this draft. You look at Nolan Smith playing like that, it's like, damn, those, NFL quarterbacks are going to have these types of guys coming after them, and knowing that Nolan Smith can drop back into coverage as well. But about the 6'3", 235 pounds, he is going to be smaller than most defensive linemen in the league, but he plays like he's bigger. He's got the size and the strength to handle most offensive linemen that he's going to come across. We saw that in the SEC. We saw that in his collegiate career. Again, number one player, number one overall recruit coming into the 2019 class. I think he is realistically, we're going to see Nolan Smith beef up by about 10, 15, maybe even 20 pounds. And yes, that is going to slow him down some, but a defensive lineman doesn't need to run a 4.39. I think he even slows down to a mid 4.4 or a low 4.4. He'll be okay with that. He's clearly got elite speed at the position. You're not going to see a lot of folks running that fast in general in the draft, let alone a damn edge rusher, defensive lineman, whatever you want to classify him as. I would like to see some more of those pass rush moves in his bag, because, again, he's going to rely on a lot of speed, a lot of finesse, a lot of agility at 6'3", 235 pounds. But Nolan Smith, I'm higher on Nolan Smith than most people. I actually have the Falcons taking Nolan Smith at potentially, in one of my mock drafts that I did. Miles Murphy wouldn't be bad either, but number 5 overall defensive lineman off the board for you. Let
I
me have
think
it.
that we're going to agree with this pick as well. I think it's going to be Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. Um, yeah, you're not exactly known, like Texas Tech is not exactly known for producing these type of players. But
Right.
again, you just can't ignore the numbers. You can't ignore what you're seeing on the tape. And when you look across all of these draft boards, each and every one of them have this kid buzzing around the top 10, top 15 at the very, very worst.
Yep.
This kid is the real deal. It is weird. Again, Texas Tech isn't known for producing these type of players, but
Yep.
when you look at the tape, and I'm sure you've watched it, like you're just seeing an extremely talented individual. So for me, yeah, I'm going to go Tyree Wilson here at number 5.
Yeah, Tyree Wilson for number 5 for me as well. I almost wanted to lean off of him, maybe go with Kalijah Cansey, maybe go with Brian Breeze, and I could potentially revise this, but for obviously, for the sake of the show, he's coming in at 6'6", 275 pounds, and the most unattractive thing about him is he doesn't have a first step. That's his biggest flaw, is his first step off the line of scrimmage. Kind of looks like he's stepping forward and then just standing up, kind of trying to observe the play, and whether it's a quarterback that's going to react faster and throw the football faster, whether it's a lineman that you're going up against that's going to react faster and block you faster, take you out of the play, or whether you're just going to be taken out of the play in general from having a late reaction, having a late first step. That is one of the few traits in the NFL, just like being able to change direction, just like being able to swivel your hips. Being able to have that first step, having that initial reaction is what separates players on the line in the secondary, but especially on the defensive side of the football. So like I said, he's not going to be the quickest of guys. He does look slow off the snap, but his strength is his absolute biggest factor. He's a beast. Again, 6'6", 275 pounds. He's going to be able to outmuscle a lot of people, really long arms, which is going to help with the way that he's, kind of conducting his play style in college and now going over to the NFL. I don't know if I would take him top 15. I really don't. I don't, man. It's hard for me to like a defensive end or someone that's rushing the quarterback coming off of the defensive line. Nonetheless, like we talked about, top 5 T linemen in the draft. So it can make you veer off there, man. And I hate how all this has come about, with defensive linemen. But anyways, to have a slower first step as a defensive player, it's not going to be the greatest thing, but one stat you can't turn your eye away from, and I know you're going to like to hear this, he had a 22.6% pass rush win percentage, which was second in the Big 12. So you can't knock that at all. The competition that he went up against, the conference that he was in, definitely have to give him his respect. So my top 5 defensive linemen in this draft: number 1, Will Anderson; number 2, Jalen Carter; number 3, Miles Murphy; number 4, Nolan Smith; number 5, Tyree Wilson. Justin, run yours back one more time for the viewers.
Basically, same thing, but Nolan Smith and
Miles
Murphy swapping. So
yep.
I go Will Anderson 1, Jalen Carter 2, Nolan Smith 3, Miles Murphy 4, and yeah, the Wilson kid here at number 5.
Yes, sir. Tyree Wilson at number 5. Let's go ahead and
hold on before you go though, Adam. I've
you're
even
good.
looking through some mock drafts, and you didn't want to take Tyree Wilson in the top 15, and I understand your concern. Mm-hmm. There is one mock draft here, and I think it is Bleacher Report, that has him as high as, will you believe this? Wait for this. The Seattle Seahawks at 5 taking Tyree Wilson. Like, ooh.
I've seen that, bro. I've seen Tyree Wilson at 5 in a lot of mock drafts, and
Ooh.
I just don't know how you pass up an SEC pass rusher. You
It don't, yeah,
that
that's
that's my thing.
you
You know,
don't.
it's so hard to pass up an SEC pass rusher or someone in the Big Ten out of Ohio State, like the Bosa brothers, obviously, like Chase Young. I mean, any defensive player that comes out of Ohio State. But yeah,
That's what I
I don't
mean.
know,
Like
man. I mean,
you
am
go,
I
you
go ahead.
don't pass up a Big Ten pass rusher or a Big Ten offensive lineman. You
Right,
don't pass up
especially O
a
line.
yeah, and you don't pass up a defensive front player from Alabama or
Yeah,
Georgia. Like you just don't do these things. That's why I'm so
yeah,
concerned. And again, this is not to knock Tyree Wilson, but
right.
I'm not going to see a Jalen Carter. I'm not going to see a Nolan Smith. I'm not going to see a Will Anderson. And
Yeah,
unless I am a quarterback needy team, I am not going to pass on one of those three players with my
yeah.
top five pick. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, my first mock draft, I have Will Anderson going at 3 to Carolina. I have Jalen Carter at 5 to Seattle. I have Nolan Smith at 6 to the Detroit Lions. I had Brian Breeze at number 18 to the Lions. I actually had Tyree Wilson at number 12 to the Texans. So there's going to be defensive linemen littered all around this draft. Where did I have Seattle taking? I have them taking at number 5 in this draft if it'll pull up for me. I had them taking Will Anderson at number 5. Where did I have Tyree Wilson? Again at number 12 to the Texans. So I think he's a little high in my box, but nonetheless, I mean, you're still going to get a good player no matter which of these guys you actually pick. So you're definitely not going to be able to complain. But yeah, if I'm Seattle knowing you're at 5, you're literally going to have a pick at Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, or Nolan Smith. Like you're
Yeah,
gonna have one of those at your disposal, unless for some reason you just want to trade back because a quarterback team maybe is coming. I don't know. Draft's gonna be crazy. All of the speculation around the draft is really the main reason why I want to watch it. And if you're open, man, I'm doing one in 2 weeks. I'm gonna go. I
I'm
think just
here.
the first 15 picks. I wanted to do the full first round, but that's like a 4-hour show. I think that go till midnight. I just know we all got shit to do.